Part 3. Lessons in blood training began at dawn on the Coalition's main base station, a massive structure that orbited a dead star. Captain Jiwan stood in the center of a training field, surrounded by 200 alien soldiers from all 4 Coalition races. They looked uncertain, uncomfortable, and completely unprepared for what she was about to put them through. "My name is Captain Jiwan," she announced. Her voice echoed across the field through translation devices. "For the next 4 weeks, I'm going to teach you how humans fight. Some of you will hate me. Most of you will want to quit. But if you listen and learn, you might actually survive what's coming." Commander Hyuk walked along the line of alien soldiers. "First lesson," he called out. "Forget everything your computers told you about warfare. Forget optimal tactics and calculated risks. Starting now, you think like a human soldier. And human soldiers have one simple rule: survive and complete the mission in that order." The Velnari struggled the most. They were used to sharing thoughts, coordinating perfectly through telepathy. But Jiwan made them turn off their mental connections during training. "In combat, the Hive can detect telepathic signals," she explained to a frustrated Velnari squad leader named Tornus. "They use it to track you, so you need to learn hand signals, verbal commands, and most importantly, trust." "Trust?" Tornus's smooth silver face rippled with confusion. "Yes. Trust that your squad mates will do their job without you checking their thoughts every second. Trust that they'll watch your back. Trust is what humans use instead of telepathy." It took 3 days before the Velnari squad could coordinate a simple assault without using mental communication. When they finally did it successfully, Tornus approached Jiwan with something like respect. "This is harder than it appears," he admitted. "Everything worth doing is hard," Jiwan replied. "But you're learning. That's what matters." The Orthani had different problems. They were beings of pure logic, used to following computer-generated battle plans down to the smallest detail. The idea of improvising horrified them. Lieutenant Nari was teaching them what she called adaptive thinking. She would set up a training scenario, let them plan it out perfectly, and then change all the conditions halfway through. "Your computers said the enemy would come from the north," Nari said to General Korthus after one particularly chaotic exercise, "but they came from the south." "What do you do?" "Recalculate," Korthus replied automatically. "No time. The enemy is already shooting at you. Decide now." Korthus's crystal body flickered rapidly, processing. I do not have enough data to make a logical decision." "Then make an illogical one," Nari said. "Guess, pick something. Do anything except stand there waiting for your computer to save you." It was a hard lesson for beings who had relied on logic for thousands of years. But slowly they began to understand. War wasn't logical. It was chaos. And the side that could adapt to chaos faster would win. The Delphon Marines trained in atmospheric combat. They were used to fighting in water or in their liquid-filled ships. But the Hive operated on dry worlds and in vacuum. The aquatic aliens had to learn to fight outside their natural environment. Corporal Subin was their instructor. She was patient, but firm, showing them how to move in environments where water physics didn't apply. "Everything weighs different here," a Delphon soldier complained through his environmental suit. "My aim is off, so adjust," Subin said. She fired her rifle 3 times at distant targets, hitting each one perfectly. "Feel the weight. Feel the recoil. Your body knows how to adapt. You just need to trust it." The Delphon practiced for hours every day, learning to shoot, move, and fight in conditions that felt completely wrong to them. But gradually their accuracy improved. Their movements became more confident. The Chirics were perhaps the easiest to train. Their species already understood discipline and working together. But they followed orders through pheromone signals from their leaders. If the leader died, the whole squad would become confused and disorganized. Sergeant Deho taught them about chain of command and individual initiative. "If your squad leader goes down, the next in line takes over," he explained. "And if they go down, the next one steps up. The mission doesn't stop because one person dies. But who decides who is next in line?" a Chiric soldier asked. "You all decide before the battle starts. Everyone knows their position. Everyone knows what to do." Deho grinned. "It's called succession planning, and it's kept human armies functioning for thousands of years." 3 weeks into training, Lieutenant Nari led a mixed squad on a real reconnaissance mission behind Hive lines. It was supposed to be simple. Get in, scan the Hive positions, get out. No combat expected. Of course, nothing ever went as planned. They were discovered by a Hive patrol halfway through the mission. Nari's squad included 2 Velnari, 1 Orthani, 3 Chirics and 1 Delphon, along with Private Minho and another human soldier named Terry. Contact, Minho shouted as hive fighters appeared from behind an asteroid. Defensive positions, Nari ordered. Her squad scattered, taking cover exactly as they had trained. The Velnari stopped themselves from telepathically panicking. The Orthani moved without waiting for computer calculations. The Chirics operated independently instead of waiting for pheromone commands. We're outnumbered 5-1, Terry reported, firing steadily at the hive ships. Then we don't fight, Nari said. We retreat? But not a panic retreat, a fighting retreat. Everyone fall back to rally point Beta, move. The squad began withdrawing, but they didn't run blindly. They moved in stages, some covering while others retreated, then switching. The hive forces chased them, but every time they got close, the squad would turn and fire, forcing them back. What are we doing? One of the Velnari asked, confused. This seems like cowardice. It's not cowardice if it's working, Nari replied. She checked her tactical display. Rally point Beta in 30 seconds. Hold your nerve. They reached the rally point, a narrow section of the asteroid field. The hive forces followed, eager to finish them off. But what they didn't know was that Sergeant Deho had mined this area 3 days earlier just in case. Everyone through the gap now, Nari shouted. Her squad raced through the narrow passage between 2 asteroids. The hive ships followed. Terry, trigger the charges! The explosions turned the asteroid field into a storm of rock and fire. Half the hive patrol was destroyed instantly. The rest scattered, trying to escape. Now we fight, Nari said calmly. Her squad turned and attacked the confused, disorganized hive forces. The battle was over in minutes. When they returned to base, the alien members of the squad looked at Nari with new understanding. They had seen what a fighting retreat was. What looked like cowardice was actually a trap. What seemed like weakness was actually strength. But not every mission ended in success. A week later, Sergeant Deho was leading an assault on a hive supply depot. The attack went perfectly until the hive sprung their own trap. Deho's squad was caught in a narrow corridor with hive forces on both sides. Fall back, Deho ordered. His squad began retreating, but the hive was closing in fast. They wouldn't make it. Deho looked at the corridor at his squad running for safety and made a decision. Everyone out now, that's an order. Sergeant, you need to come with us. One of the Chiric soldiers shouted. No time. Someone needs to hold them here or none of us make it. Deho smiled, even though no one could see it through his helmet. Tell Captain Jiwan she was right. Every battle needs someone willing to hold the line. He planted himself in the center of the corridor with every weapon he had. The last thing his squad heard was Deho laughing as he opened fire on the approaching hive forces. Then the corridor collapsed, sealed by the explosives he had triggered. The squad made it out. Deho didn't. That night, the aliens in his squad sat together in silence. One of the Orthani, a soldier named Praxis, tried to understand what had happened. Why did he choose to die? Praxis asked. The logical action was for everyone to retreat together, even if some were lost. Corporal Subin, who had served with Deho for 2 years, wiped tears from her eyes. Because some things are worth dying for, Deho knew that if he didn't hold that corridor, the entire squad would die. So he chose to sacrifice himself to save them. But that is not logical, Praxis said. No, Subin agreed. It's not logical. It's human. Captain G1 held a memorial service for Deho the next morning. Every human soldier attended, but so did every alien soldier who had trained under him or fought beside him. They were beginning to understand what made humans different. After the service, Ambassador Mirai found G1 standing alone, looking at Deho's empty bunk. The Coalition is asking if the human training program is worth the casualties, Mirai said quietly. Tell them yes, G1 replied without hesitation. Deho's death saved 7 soldiers who will now go on to save 70 more. That's how humans think. That's how we've survived every war we've ever fought. The aliens are having trouble understanding that. They will, G1 said, because we're going to keep teaching them. And the hive is going to keep giving them reasons to learn. She turned to face Mirai. The hive has been adapting to our tactics. They're getting smarter, faster, but we have one advantage they'll never have. What's that? We have soldiers who will fight for each other, even when it costs them everything. Part 4. The Turning Tide Captain. Jiwan spread her hands across the massive tactical display in the Coalition Command Center. 17 star systems glowed red on the map. 17 hive node stations that controlled entire sectors of conquered space. You want to attack all of them at once? General Korthus asked. His crystal body flickered with colors that suggested disbelief. This is impossible. We do not have enough forces. We have exactly enough forces, Commander Yuk replied. He pointed to the fleet positions. If we spread them thin across 17 targets simultaneously, it's risky, but that's the point. The point is suicide, a Delphin admiral said through his translator. No, Jiwan said firmly. The point is to overwhelm the Hive's ability to respond. They're used to us attacking one target at a time. They concentrate their forces and crush us. But what if we attack everywhere at once? They can't defend 17 positions with equal strength. Some will fall, and some of our forces will be destroyed, Korthus stated. Yes, Jiwan agreed. But we'll win more than we lose. That's called acceptable casualties. Ambassador Mirai stood in the corner, watching the alien commander struggle with this concept. She had seen this before. The Coalition thought in terms of 0 losses, perfect victories. But humans understood that war always had a cost. The Coalition Council will never approve this plan, she said quietly. Then we do it without approval, Lieutenant Nari said. She had just returned from another reconnaissance mission, looking tired but determined. Captain Jiwan has tactical command. The Council gave her that authority when they were desperate. Now they have to trust her. High Commander Velnus, the Velnari leader, had been silent throughout the discussion. Now his telepathic voice echoed in everyone's minds. The human captain is correct. We have been fighting defensively for too long. The Hive grows stronger while we grow weaker. A bold strike is our only option. This is not bold, the Delphon Admiral protested. This is reckless. Reckless is what humans do best, Hyuk said with a slight smile. And it's kept us alive when smarter species would have given up. The planning took 3 days. Every available ship, every combat-ready soldier, every weapon in the Coalition arsenal was assigned to one of the 17 strike forces. The human soldiers were spread thin, with at least one in each attack group to coordinate tactics. Corporal Subin found herself assigned to Strike Force 7, attacking a hive node in the outer rim. Her squad was mostly Velnari, telepaths who had learned to fight without their mental connections. Nervous? One of the Velnari, Tornus, asked her before they boarded the transport. Terrified, Subin admitted. But that's normal before a big operation. How do you function while terrified? Practice, Subin said. She checked her rifle for the 10th time. Lots and lots of practice. Private Minho was with Strike Force 11 deep in Hive-controlled space. His squad leader was an Orthani named Praxis, the same crystal being who had struggled to understand why Sergeant Deho sacrificed himself. Private Minho, Praxis said as they prepared for launch. I have studied human military history. Your species has a saying, fortune favors the bold. Is this accurate? Sometimes, Minho replied. Other times, boldness gets you killed. The trick is knowing the difference. And how do you know? Minho grinned. You don't. You just hope you guessed right. Praxis's crystalline form shimmered. It might have been laughter. Lieutenant Nari commanded Strike Force 3. The tip of the spear aimed at one of the largest hive nodes. Her force included Chirix fighters who had mastered independent flight tactics and Delphon Marines, who could now fight in any environment. Remember, she told her pilots before launch, we hit hard, we hit fast, and we don't stick around for a fair fight. This isn't about honor. It's about winning. The Chirix pilots clicked their understanding through their translators. They had learned well. Captain Jiwan would lead Strike Force 1 personally, targeting the central hive node that coordinated all 17 sectors. It was the most dangerous mission, the one with the lowest survival probability, which was exactly why she had assigned it to herself. You don't have to do this, Ambassador Mirai said as Jiwan boarded her ship. You could coordinate from the command center. I could, Jiwan agreed, but I won't ask anyone to do something I wouldn't do myself. That's human leadership lesson number 1. What's lesson number 2? Lead from the front or don't lead at all. The 17 strike forces launched simultaneously, across dozens of star systems. Coalition ships emerged from faster-than-light travel and immediately engaged hive forces. The galaxy lit up with warfare on a scale never seen before. Strike Force 7 hit their target exactly as planned. Corporal Subin and her Velnari squad infiltrated the node station, while the ships provided covering fire. They moved through the organic corridors of the hive structure, their weapons ready. Contact ahead, Tornus warned. He was using hand signals now, no telepathy. The hive drones appeared around the corner. The squad opened fire with perfect coordination. Years of telepathic teamwork translated into physical cooperation. Charges planted. Subin reported. Everyone out. 30 seconds, they ran. The explosion behind them shook the entire station. Through the viewport, Subin could see the node's power core failing. The mission was a success. Strike Force 11 wasn't so lucky. Private Minho's group encountered heavy resistance. Their assault on the node station stalled when Hive reinforcements arrived faster than expected. We're surrounded, Praxis stated calmly, his logical mind processing their tactical situation. Probability of survival, 12%. Then let's make that 12% count, Minho said. He was scared, more scared than he had ever been, but his hands were steady on his weapon. We complete the mission. That's what Sergeant Deho would have done. Praxis understood. They fought their way forward, meter by meter, losing soldiers with every step. But they reached the objective. They planted the charges, and as the Hive forces closed in, Praxis made a decision that would have been impossible for him a month ago. Everyone evacuate, he ordered. I will detonate the charges manually. No, Minho shouted. We can set a timer. The Hive is jamming our detonators, Praxis replied. Manual detonation is the only option. This is what humans would call a necessary sacrifice, you know? You're not human. You don't have to do this. Praxis's crystal body flashed with colors that might have been a smile. I have learned from humans. That makes me human enough. He sealed the door, trapping himself inside with the charges. The last thing Minho heard was Praxis saying, Tell Captain Jiwan. The crystal beings understand now. The explosion destroyed the node completely. Minho and the survivors escaped, but they carried the weight of Praxis's sacrifice with them. Lieutenant Nari's strike force encountered a new problem. The Hive had adapted to their tactics. They had predicted the feint attacks and set up ambushes. Nari's force flew straight into a trap. Evasive maneuvers, she shouted as Hive fighters swarmed from all directions. Her pilots scattered, their chaotic flight patterns the only thing keeping them alive. But there were too many enemies. We need to abort, her second-in-command said. No, Nari replied. She checked her tactical display. If they retreated now, 3 other strike forces would be exposed. We hold the line here. Make them fight for every meter. It was brutal. Ships exploded. Pilots died. But Nari's force didn't break. They adapted to the Hive's adaptation, changing tactics on the fly, being unpredictable even when the Hive expected unpredictability. In the end, they held long enough for the node to be destroyed by a bombing run from their capital ships, but the cost was terrible. Nari's force had started with 30 ships. Only 11 made it out. Captain Jiwan's assault on the central node was the fiercest battle of all. The Hive had concentrated massive defenses around this critical position. Her ships fought through wave after wave of biological fighters, each one as expendable as the cells in a body. Hull breach on Deck 7. Commander Hayek reported from the command bridge. Hive boarding parties. Seal the deck and vent it, Jiwan ordered coldly. She hated giving that command. There were crew members on Deck 7. But if the Hive boarders reached the reactor, everyone would die. The battle raged for hours. Every coalition victory was answered by more Hive forces. Every Hive weakness was quickly adapted away. It was a war of attrition, and the Hive had more to give. But humans were stubborn, and they had taught the coalition to be stubborn too. All ships, final push, Jiwan commanded. Everything we have. Break through or die trying. The coalition fleet surged forward. Ships that were already damaged pushed their engines beyond safety limits. Crews that were exhausted found reserves of energy they didn't know they had. And in the center of it all was Jiwan, refusing to retreat, refusing to accept defeat. They broke through. The assault teams reached the node. The charges were planted, and as the node began to explode, Jiwan gave the order to retreat. Across 17 star systems, the pattern repeated. Some strike forces succeeded easily. Others paid terrible prices. But in the end, 16 of the 17 Hive nodes were destroyed. Only one survived, and it was damaged and isolated. The coalition had won. Not perfectly, not without losses, but they had won. In the command center, exhausted officers from a dozen species watched the tactical displays update. Green lights where Hive nodes used to be. Part 2. The Human Way. The coalition command center looked different now. Where before there had been neat rows of officers at stations, Now there were maps spread across every surface. Human soldiers moved between alien commanders, speaking quickly and pointing at targets. The organized chaos of human military planning had replaced the careful order of coalition procedure. Commander Hyuk stood at the center tactical display with 3 Velnari officers. They looked uncomfortable. Telepaths weren't used to keeping secrets, but Hyuk had insisted that the Hive could detect their mental communications. "You need to think like they're listening," Hyuk explained, "because they probably are. The Hive adapts to everything, including mental patterns, so we go old school. Paper maps, verbal orders, physical couriers." One of the Velnari, a female named Silnus, touched her smooth silver forehead. "This is difficult. We have used telepathy for 10,000 years. "Then it's time to learn a new trick," Hyuk said. He wasn't being mean, just direct. "In human military history, we spent centuries learning how to hide information from enemies. Codes, signals, dead drops, the whole works. If you want to beat the Hive, you need to be unpredictable, and telepathy is very predictable." Across the room, Lieutenant Nari was working with a team of Chirix pilots. The insect-like aliens were having trouble with her flight patterns. "You're flying in formation," Nari said, frustrated. "Perfect geometric shapes. The Hive can calculate where you'll be before you get there. But formation flying is efficient." One of the Chirix clicked through his translator. "It saves fuel and maintains optimal spacing. It also gets you killed," Nari replied. She pulled up a simulation on the screen. "Watch this. Formation flying." The simulated ships moved in perfect coordination. Then Hive fighters appeared and destroyed them in seconds. "Now watch this." She ran the simulation again, but this time the ships broke formation, each one moving independently, unpredictably. The Hive fighters couldn't target them effectively. Half the coalition ships survived. "This seems chaotic," the Chirix said. "It is chaotic," Nari agreed. "That's the point. Chaos is hard to predict, and if the enemy can't predict you, they can't kill you as easily." Captain G1 was in a different section of the command center with the Orthani General Korthus. The crystal being was struggling with the concept G1 was trying to explain. "A feint is a lie," Korthus said slowly. "You make the enemy believe you will attack one location, but you attack another." "Exactly," G1 said. "But lying is inefficient. It wastes resources on false movements." "It's not a waste if it saves lives," G1 replied. She pointed to a map of a Hive-controlled system. "Look, you've been hitting their positions head-on. Direct assaults with maximum force. Very logical. Very predictable. The Hive knows exactly what you're going to do, so they're ready for it. What do you suggest? We hit 3 targets simultaneously. 2 of them are feints with minimum forces. The third is our real attack with everything we have. The Hive has to defend all 3 until they figure out which is real. By then, we've already won." Korthus's crystal body flickered with different colors as he processed this. "This is deception. This is war," Jiwan said firmly. "And in war, the side that can lie better usually wins." Sergeant Deho was the Coalition's new specialist in what he called creative destruction. He was a short, stocky man who smiled too much for someone who spent his time planning explosions. Currently, he was teaching a group of Orthani engineers how to make improvised weapons. "See, your problem is you think too clean," Deho said, holding up a piece of damaged Hive technology. "You want everything manufactured to exact specifications. But we don't have time for that. So we improvise." He connected the Hive device to a Coalition power cell using what looked like spare wire and tape. "This shouldn't work according to your computers, right?" The Orthani engineer's crystal surface rippled with concern. "Correct. The power requirements are incompatible. This will explode." "Exactly," Deho grinned. "And we're going to attach it to their ships. They'll try to use it thinking it's still functional, and boom. Instant sabotage. This seems dangerous." "War is dangerous," Deho replied. "The question is whether you want it to be dangerous for you or dangerous for them." 6 hours later, the first human-planned operation launched. It was an attack on a Hive node station in the Kelvar system. The Coalition had tried to take this station twice before and failed both times. Jiwan watched from the command center as her plan unfolded. 3 separate attack groups approached the station from different angles. The Hive forces split to defend against all 3, just as she predicted. "Group 1 is taking heavy fire," Hyuk reported. "They're falling back according to plan." "Group 2 is engaged," Nari's voice came through the communications. Beginning false retreat. This was the moment. The Hive would think the Coalition was doing what they always did. attacking and then retreating when losses got too high. They would chase the retreating ships, trying to finish them off. Group 3, you're clear, Ji-won said into her communicator. Hit them now. The main assault force had been hiding in the asteroid field nearby. Now they burst out, full speed, directly at the Hive station. The Hive defenders were out of position, chasing the other two groups. By the time they realized what was happening, Group 3 was already at the station. Daeho's improvised explosives went off first, destroying the station's shield generators. Then the coalition ships opened fire with everything they had. The station's hull cracked like glass. They're trying to seal the breach, an Orthani officer reported. Not if I can help it, Nari said. Her fighters screamed past the station and dropped a cluster of missiles directly into the crack. The explosion that followed lit up the entire system. When the light faded, the Hive node station was gone. Just debris and empty space. The command center erupted in cheers. Aliens who had been fighting and losing for 3 years were suddenly celebrating a victory. A real victory. Hyuk walked over to Ji-won and offered his flask again. This time she took it and drank. First major win in 8 months, Hyuk said quietly. Maybe these aliens can learn after all. They're learning, Ji-won agreed. But the Hive is learning too. This tactic will only work once, maybe twice more. Then they'll adapt. So what do? We keep changing. Keep adapting faster than they can. That's the human way. Ambassador Mirai approached them, looking more excited than Ji-won had ever seen her. Captain, the Coalition Council is calling this a miracle. They're asking for more operations like this. Tell them they'll get them, Ji-won said. But make sure they understand something important. What's that? Miracles cost blood. We won today, but we lost 17 ships and over 300 crew. By Coalition standards, that's unacceptable casualties. By human standards, that's a victory we paid for fair and square. Mirai's excitement dimmed slightly. Will they accept that cost? They don't have a choice, Hyuk said. It's either pay the price or lose everything. Across the room, Corporal Subin was sitting with a group of Velnari warriors. The telepaths were asking her questions about human combat philosophy. How do you deal with fear? One of them asked. Subin thought about it for a moment. We don't get rid of fear. We use it. Fear keeps you sharp. It keeps you alive. The trick is not letting it control you. But we can sense each other's fear telepathically. It spreads between us. Then learn to block it out, Subin said. Or better yet, learn to be more afraid of losing than dying. That's what gets humans through impossible situations. We're more scared of failure than we are of death. The Velnari were silent, processing this strange human concept. Private Minho, the youngest human soldier in the fleet, was cleaning his rifle when a Delphon officer approached him. The aquatic alien's environmental suit was still dripping from his ship's internal ocean. I watched you during the battle, the Delphin said through his translator. You were afraid. I could see it in your movements. But you fought anyway. Yes, sir, Minho said quietly. Why? If you were afraid, why not retreat to safety? Minho looked up at the alien. Because my squad was counting on me. Captain Ji-won was counting on me. And I'd rather die than let them down. The Delphon's large eyes blinked slowly. Your species is very strange. Yeah, Minho agreed. We get that a lot. That night, Captain Ji-won stood alone in her quarters looking at a list of names. The 17 ships they'd lost. The 312 crew members who wouldn't be coming home. She knew every human name on that list. She'd personally recruited most of them back when Earth first joined the Coalition. The door chimed. Come in, she said. Hyuk entered with 2 cups of coffee, real Earth coffee, not the synthesized alien stuff. Thought you might need this. Thanks. Ji-won took the cup and continued staring at the list. You can't save everyone, Hyuk said gently. I know, but I can try to make their deaths mean something. She looked at him. We showed the Coalition how to win today. Now we need to show them how to keep winning. One battle at a time, Hyuk agreed. One battle at a time, Ji-won repeated, but she was already planning the next one. Part 1. The Fall of Hope. The stars burned red above Vectara Prime. Captain Ji-won stood on the observation deck of the Coalition command ship, watching another fleet die. Explosions bloomed in the darkness like flowers made of fire. Each burst of light meant hundreds of lives ended in an instant. They're breaking through the left flank, someone said behind her. Ji-won didn't turn around. She had seen this happen too many times before. The Galactic Coalition had been fighting the Hive Dominion for 3 years. In that time, They had lost 73% of their forces. Entire worlds had gone silent. Billions of people were dead or worse, absorbed into the hive's collective consciousness. The coalition was made up of 4 ancient alien races. The Velnari could read minds and speak without words. The Orthani were beings of living crystal who thought in perfect logic. The Delphins came from water worlds and moved through space in ships filled with ocean. The Chirics looked like giant insects and worked together through chemical signals. All of them were older than humanity. All of them had technology that made Earth's weapons look like toys. And all of them were losing. The hive was different from anything the galaxy had ever seen. They didn't negotiate. They didn't retreat. They just kept coming, wave after wave, learning from every battle and adapting to every tactic. Their ships were biological, grown rather than built. When one died, 10 more took its place. Commander Hayek walked up beside Jiwan. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. The Orthani fleet just requested permission to withdraw, he said quietly. Denied, I assume? Jiwan asked. Of course. If they leave, the entire line collapses. Hayek pulled out a small metal flask and took a drink. He offered it to Jiwan, but she shook her head. How many humans do we have left? She asked. 217 combat-ready soldiers, 15 pilots, 3 ships, Jiwan laughed, but there was no humor in it. We came to this war with 5,000. We came to prove humanity deserved a seat at the table, Hayek said. Instead, we're dying alongside everyone else. Behind them, the door opened. Ambassador Mirai entered, her formal clothes looking out of place on a warship. She was young for a diplomat, barely 30, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The Coalition High Command wants to speak with you. Captain, Mirai said. Tell them I'm busy watching their fleet get destroyed, Jiwan replied. They're requesting it officially. They need the human contingent in the command center immediately. Jiwan finally turned away from the window. They need us? 3 hours ago, the Velnari commander told me that human tactics were too primitive for modern warfare. What changed? Mirai's expression was grim. Everything. The hive just broke through the Delphon home defense. Their planet will fall within 2 days. The coalition is out of options. The command center was chaos. Holographic displays showed battle maps across a dozen star systems. All of them were painted red with hive forces. Alien officers shouted in a dozen languages, while translation computers struggled to keep up. Standing in the center was High Commander Velnus, a Velnari who looked like a tall humanoid made of silver skin and no face, just smooth surface that rippled when he spoke telepathically. Beside him stood General Korthos of the Orthani, a being of blue crystal that refracted light into rainbow patterns. Captain Jiwan. Velnus's voice echoed directly in her mind. Your presence is required. I'm here, Jiwan said aloud. She refused to let telepaths into her thoughts. The situation has become critical, General Korthos said. His voice sounded like wind chimes. We have analyzed all possible strategies using our combined databases. The probability of victory is 0.03%. So you're giving up? Hyuk asked. No, Velnus replied. We are asking for help. Human help. The room went quiet. Every alien officer turned to stare at the small group of humans. You spent 3 years telling us we didn't know how to fight a civilized war, Jiwan said slowly. You put us on the worst assignments. You treated us like children playing with weapons we didn't understand, and now you want our help? We were wrong, Korthos admitted. The crystal being actually sounded ashamed. We have watched your species fight. You are reckless. You ignore casualties that we would find unacceptable. You use strategies that our computers classify as suicide, but you win battles that we cannot. Your species has been fighting wars on one planet for your entire history, Velnus added. We have had peace among our own kind for thousands of years. We know how to build ships and advance technology. But you know how to fight. Lieutenant Nari stepped forward from behind Jiwan. She was young, barely 25, but her eyes held the hardness of someone who had seen too much death. What exactly are you asking us to do? Lead, Korthos said simply. Take command of coalition forces. Show us how to fight this enemy. And if we fail? Jiwan asked. Then we all die together, Velnus replied. But if you succeed, humanity will have earned something greater than respect. You will have saved the galaxy. Jiwan looked at her soldiers. There were only 5 humans in the command center. 5 survivors out of 5,000 who had come to fight 3 years ago. They had watched friends die in battles planned by alien commanders who didn't understand that sometimes you had to risk everything to win anything. If we do this, we do it our way, Ji-won said. No more committee decisions. No more tactical reviews by crystal computers. No more retreating because the casualty projections are too high. We fight like humans fight. And how is that? Korthus asked. Dirty, mean, with everything we have and nothing held back. Ji-won turned to face the holographic displays. You want to know why humans keep winning impossible battles? Because we're too stupid to know when we're supposed to lose. Hyuk grinned. It was the first time he'd smiled in weeks. Captain, if you're asking permission to make terrible decisions that might get us all killed, I'm absolutely on board. I'm not asking permission, Ji-won said. She turned to Velnus and Korthus. Get every coalition officer into this room. Get me complete tactical data on every hive position. And someone find me a map of their supply lines. The hive doesn't have supply lines, Korthus said. They grow everything they need. Everything has a supply line, Ji-won replied. We just need to figure out what it is. And then we're going to cut it. Ambassador Mireille stepped forward. Captain, the Coalition Council will need to officially approve this change in command structure. Then get them to approve it fast, Ji-won said. Because in 6 hours I'm launching an attack whether they approve or not. The hive thinks they're winning. It's time we teach them about humanity's favorite military tradition. What tradition is that? A T-Rex officer asked through his translator device. Ji-won looked at the alien, then at the burning stars on the display screens. The comeback. Outside the window, another ship exploded. But for the first time in 3 years, Captain Ji-won wasn't watching defeat. She was planning victory. Part 5. Victory's Price. The hive core world hung in space like a diseased heart. Its surface was entirely covered in organic structures, pulsing and growing, spreading like cancer across the planet. This was where the Hive Queen lived, where the collective consciousness was strongest, where the war would finally end. Captain Ji-won stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship, looking at the planet that had haunted her nightmares for years. Around her, the combined fleet gathered. What remained of humanity's forces? The Velnari telepaths who had learned to fight in silence, the Orthani crystal warriors who had mastered improvisation, the Delphon Marines who could battle anywhere, the Chirix pilots who flew with independent thought. Final count, Commander Hyuk said quietly. We have 63 capital ships, 200 fighters, and approximately 8,000 combat troops. The Hive has orbital defense stations numbering in the hundreds, General Korthus reported. Ground forces estimated in the millions. Our tactical computers calculate 0 probability of success. Good thing we stopped listening to computers, Lieutenant Nari said. She was piloting one of the lead fighters, her voice coming through clear on the communications channel. Ambassador Mireille stood beside Ji-won, no longer just a diplomat but a member of the War Council. The Coalition Council wanted me to remind you that if this attack fails, the galaxy will be defenseless. Then we don't fail, Ji-won said simply. She activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Captain Ji-won. Today we end this war, not because we're stronger than the Hive, not because we have better weapons, but because we have something they will never understand. We fight for each other. Every species in this fleet has learned to trust, to sacrifice, to hope. That's our weapon. That's how we win. She paused, looking at the faces around her bridge, humans and aliens side by side. 3 years ago, the Coalition was losing. Today we're winning, because we learned that victory requires paying a price, and we're willing to pay it. All ships advanced, the fleet moved forward as one. The Hive defenses opened fire immediately. Space lit up with weapons fire, missiles, and energy beams. Ships began dying within seconds. Evasive pattern Delta, Hyuk commanded. The fleet scattered, using the chaotic tactics humans had taught them. The Hive defenses tried to track them, but the unpredictable movements made targeting difficult. Strike Teams Alpha through Epsilon, launch, Ji-won ordered. Assault shuttles burst from the capital ships, carrying the ground forces that would have to fight through the planet's surface to reach the Queen. Corporal Subin was in Strike Team Beta. Her squad of Velnari had become her family over the past months. They moved together like they were telepathically connected, even though they kept their minds separate. Landing zone is hot, the pilot warned as their shuttle dove toward the planet's surface. Anti-aircraft fire exploded around them. The shuttle shook violently. Brace for impact. The shuttle crashed more than landed, skidding across the organic ground of the hive world. The door blew open and Subin's squad rushed out, weapons firing. The hive drones swarmed them immediately. Millions of them, maybe billions, all controlled by the collective consciousness. But Subin and her squad had trained for this. They formed a defensive perimeter, covering each other, moving as one unit. "Advance to objective marker," Subin commanded. The objective was 5 kilometers away, through the heart of hive territory. It might as well have been on another planet. Private Minho's strike team landed in a different zone. They fought through swarms of hive drones, each step paid for with ammunition and sweat and blood. Beside him, Jirek's soldiers fought with a ferocity they had learned from humans. When one fell, another took their place without hesitation. "The Queen's chamber is underground," an Orthani soldier named Nexus reported. He had taken Praxis's place after the Crystal Warrior died at the node station. "We must breach the surface layers. Then we dig," Minho said. He planted explosive charges along what appeared to be a weak point in the organic structure. "Fire in the hole!" The explosion tore through layers of biological material, creating a passage downward. Minho's team descended into the darkness, into the very heart of the hive. Above them, the space battle continued. Lieutenant Nari's fighter squadron was providing cover for the ground forces, but the hive was throwing everything at them. "I've got 3 bogies on my tail," one of her pilots called out. "Hold on, I'm coming," Nari replied. She spun her fighter in a maneuver that would have been impossible a year ago, before she learned to think like a human pilot. Chaotic, unpredictable, effective. She destroyed the pursuing hive fighters with precision shots. But there were always more. Always, on the flagship. Commander Hyuk watched the tactical displays with growing concern. "Captain, we're losing ships faster than projected. At this rate, we'll be combat ineffective in 30 minutes. Then the ground teams have 30 minutes to complete their mission," Jiwon said. She knew she was asking the impossible. She had been asking the impossible for months now. But somehow humans and their coalition allies kept achieving it. "Captain," the communications officer called out, "Commander Hyuk's ship is taking heavy damage. They're requesting permission to withdraw." Jiwon looked at Hyuk. He looked back at her, and in that moment they didn't need words. They had served together for too long, fought through too many battles. "Negative," Hyuk said into his communicator. "All power to weapons. We hold the line." "Hyuk," Jiwon said quietly. "You don't have to—" "Yes, I do," he interrupted with a slight smile. "Someone has to coordinate the fleet's movements. And my ship isn't going anywhere anyway. Make my death mean something, Jiwon. Win this war." His ship exploded 3 minutes later, taking a hive orbital station with it. Jiwon watched it happen, her face expressionless, her heart breaking. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Too many people were depending on her. On the planet's surface, Corporal Subin's squad had reached the underground entrance to the Queen's chamber. But so had hundreds of hive drones. They were surrounded, outnumbered by ratios that made victory mathematically impossible. "Well," Tornus said through their communication link, "this is what humans call the last stand, correct?" "Yeah," Subin replied. She checked her ammunition. Almost empty. "But humans also have a saying about last stands. We don't go quietly." They fought with everything they had. Every bullet, every energy blast, every ounce of strength. One by one, the squad members fell. But they took dozens of hive drones with each death. They bought time for other squads to advance. When Subin fell, her last thought was that she had done enough. She had held the line. Private Minho's team reached the Queen's chamber first. The vast organic space was like being inside a living creature. And at the center, the Hive Queen herself, massive and terrible and ancient. Lieutenant Nari's team arrived seconds later, crashing through a side entrance. They had fought through kilometers of hive territory, lost half their squad, and were running on nothing but determination. "Plant the charges," Nari ordered. Her soldiers spread out, placing explosive devices around the chamber. The Queen watched them with thousands of eyes, her consciousness pressing against their minds like a weight. Then the Queen spoke, not in words but directly into their thoughts. "Why do you persist? You cannot win. Your losses are unsustainable. Logic demands surrender," Minho answered aloud, even though the Queen could hear thoughts. "Because humans don't surrender, and we've taught everyone else not to surrender either." "Foolishness," the Queen replied. "Your species is young and ignorant. You do not understand the inevitability of the hive." "Maybe," Nari said, arming the charges. but we understand something you never will. We fight for each other. Not because we're forced to, not because we're all part of one mind, but because we choose to. That's what makes us stronger than you." The Queen's presence grew more intense, trying to break into their minds to force them to stop. But the human soldiers had trained the alien warriors well. They resisted. They held. "Charges armed," Nexus reported. 30 seconds to detonation. Everyone out. Nari shouted. The team ran for the exit. But the hive drones were closing in, blocking their escape. They weren't going to make it. Private Minho looked at the blocked exit, at his squad running for safety, at the timer counting down. He made the same choice Sergeant Deho had made. The same choice Praxis had made. The same choice that humans had been making throughout history when something was more important than their own life. "Go," he shouted to the others.
"I'll hold them here."
"Mingo, no," Nari yelled back. "Someone has to, Lieutenant, and I'm the one closest to the door." He smiled even though she couldn't see his face through his helmet. "Tell Captain Jiwan I finally understand. About sacrifice. About why humans keep winning." He planted himself in the doorway and opened fire on the approaching hive drones. His weapon blazed, cutting them down, buying precious seconds for his squad to escape. Lieutenant Nari ran, tears streaming down her face as the chamber behind her exploded. The blast wave knocked her forward, but her squad caught her. They carried her to the surface as the entire underground structure began to collapse. Above the planet, Captain Jiwan saw the seismic readings. The Queen's chamber was destroyed. The hive collective consciousness was fragmenting, the drones becoming confused and disorganized. "All forces, final push," she commanded.